Now, welcome to another aggressive negotiations. Though I don't know how aggressive the negotiations will be this time. I think we're going to agree quite a bit here. But today's topic is going to be Rey Skywalker.
Rey!
Or Finn.
No, just...
I could talk about Finn. I like Finn, man.
I know.
One of the biggest disappointments of the sequels was doing nothing with Finn and the idea of the former stormtrooper. But anyway, we're not here to talk about him.
Not today.
Maybe tomorrow or some other day soon. But you like Rey.
I like the Rey from Force Awakens and the potential she had.
Okay. I don't hate Rey.
I hate Rey from The Last Jedi.
See, that's why this isn't going to be much in the way of an aggressive discussion, I don't think. But you've been wanting to do a video kind of defending Rey. You've thrown the idea out there, and I am going to try to be your devil's advocate for the most part here. So do take that in mind here if I try to jab at Rey at all. I don't really hate the character. I don't think she... I don't. I think she was terrible in the Last Jedi. I think they really missed the boat in that film.
And I feel like they had so much to try and fix in The Rise of Skywalker that they fixed her in a way that isn't as optimal as I would have seen it fixed.
Yeah, and speaking of The Rise of Skywalker, it is the 3-year anniversary of the film. That's kind of why we're doing this today. We wanted to discuss her story because the sequels in many ways are Rey's story, for better or worse. And we didn't really have much in the way of news again today, so you get this instead.
You're welcome.
I hope. Or sorry.
Sorry.
We'll see in about 10 minutes, maybe more. But anyway, how do you feel about Rey? Well, I mean, you talked a lot about her.
The character from Rey in A Force Awakens is a character that I felt so connected to. She's isolated, she's a loner, but there's this desperate part underneath everything that wants to belong. She wants a family. She wants a unit of people she can be with. So she's trusting in a way she shouldn't always be because of the fact that she just wants, she wants to be loved. She wants a family. She wants a unit. She wants to belong somewhere. And she feels like a loner. She's been told, Unkar Plutt's not exactly nice to her. She's been told she's, pretty much that she's been abandoned, sold off, her parents or whatever fly off into the distance. It's her earliest memory, it seems. But for some reason...
she's trusting.
Yeah, she's trusting. She's sad and alone, and it makes her trusting because she wants to belong.
Which is one of my biggest issues with the character, is that she is so trusting. Now, if you're going to live on a deserted...
it's because she's not like an embroiled hermit.
Yeah, if you're going to live on a backwater planet like Jakku that is cutthroat, where you have scavengers and, food is an issue, water is an issue, all these things are an issue, and you are the type of person who is overly kind and considerate and caring and giving... probably not going to last very long.
I don't think she's overly those things.
I don't think she is either, but she is with Finn, and that happens to make the movie happen, right? But I think the first movie should have been about Finn. Here we go, talking about Finn. I sneak it in anyway. It should have been about Finn and Rey learning how to trust. That is a much better story than them like, hey, let's just be buddies now.
Well, the situation they got thrown into is one that can easily harbor trust.
Yes, I
she
agree,
wanted to protect BB-8. He knew that they were after BB-8.
I agree, but you start with not trust. You start with definite apprehension between the two.
Well, she didn't want him touching her.
Even.
And he kept grabbing her hand.
Well, that was more of that showing Rey can just do what Rey does because she's Rey, right? She doesn't need a boy taking her hand and showing her the way. Was kind of the message I've always gotten from that.
No, I think it's, stop taking my hand. I don't know you. How would you feel if a stranger is like grabbing your hand and pulling you along?
Depends
Stop grabbing my hand. I don't know you.
Hey, if it's John Boyega.
Maybe I don't need you to grab my hand. Maybe I run faster if I have two hands to...
I love when you ignore my comments.
I do ignore
that I try to get a rise out of you from. But no,
ignoring it.
Is it John Boyega or is it
No, it's just some stranger is grabbing her hand and pulling her along, and that made her uncomfortable.
All right.
And I know this because I feel like I relate.
Again, I'm trying to poke the badger, as I say sometimes. I'm trying to get a response because I'm trying to see what you say and how you defend her, because I don't know about that scene. There's been a lot of people who make the case that they're trying to prove that Rey doesn't... I don't need no man to, help me here.
Well, I think it is some sort of self-reliance. I know that I can run faster when someone's not pulling my hand along, too.
Yes.
She could also be looking at it as a detriment, like, you're pulling me around by the hand, and now I can't run as fast or dodge if I need to because now I'm, strapped to you.
Fair enough. Yeah,
There's a lot of reasons you might not want someone holding your hand who, A, you don't really know, and B, when you're trying to run away from something.
Fair enough. I still think the movie is much better if these two don't immediately seem to kind of form this bond and trust. Again, I get what the story wants to do. I get you. These are your new main characters, and you want them
forcing into a position where they almost have to trust because they need to escape.
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between having to trust and then once you're free and escape that, and then kind of already being like best friends, or quickly becoming best friends. It's like the two of them have come from these terrible situations and they immediately want to latch on to something. But at the same time, I'm thinking you come from these terrible situations where you've probably run into people you don't like and don't trust. You know, you've been a soldier your whole life. You've been trained, to be a robot essentially. And he's kind of joking around, and she's like,
he's the one who's a little odd. I think she is not as much because she helps him escape, and she's immediately like, yeah, I'm going back to Jakku. And then they end up getting...
Let's go back to Jakku.
Yeah. They aren't really friends. I mean, she's fixing the ship. She's getting frustrated. He's not handing her the things she needs because, they aren't really friends yet. They're just thrust into a situation where they have to be partners in some sense because she needs help fixing the ship. He knows where the resistance base is and where they're going to drop the droid off, which she cares about the droid. It's not exactly that they're immediately forming the kinship of besties bond. It's that they have mutual need of each other. He can't run the ship without her because she knows how to fix it. She can't get BB-8 to the resistance base where he's safe and back with his, doing his mission unless Finn helps.
See, my problem is you can see the dots in the movie. We need Finn and Rey to immediately kind of become friends so that Finn will go and save Rey from Starkiller Base. Though she was doing just fine escaping on her own.
Maybe part of the reason he saves her from Starkiller Base, maybe he feels guilty. He dragged her into all of it. She was fine on Jakku.
Yeah, I guess so.
She wasn't going to leave Jakku. She had no plans on leaving at all.
But he went from like, I gotta go save my own skin, I'm getting out of here. Maz, like, I've seen that look in your, you're afraid and you're running. And then he's like, nah, I'm going to go save her.
Yeah, he's the one who had the stranger arc there than her.
Yeah. And unfortunately, his arc did kind of become chasing Rey.
Yes. He was looking for his MacGuffin.
Well, his McLovin is more like it.
See, that was his weird... They messed up his story, I think, in that area more than they messed up hers.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a point. You agreed.
I agree. No, Finn is just, they botched Finn.
They botched Finn. Like, oh, look, you're a freed stormtrooper. First thing you're going to do when you meet a girl is ask if they've got a boyfriend.
Hot boyfriend, yeah.
Weird.
Is it, though?
Yeah. Where they started dropping the ball with Rey's story, in my opinion, is the next movie, but because they left threads that never got answered.
I'm going to say they botched her story in the first movie. They should have answered all her questions in that first movie instead of leaving it hanging. But
they had to leave things hanging because they wanted you invested in that next movie.
That's not how you invest people. You invest people. See, the problem, I've always said the problem with Rey is people were more interested in where she came from than where she was going. And that was the fault of The Force Awakens, not telling us, unfortunately, telling us exactly who she is.
You're right. They did give us too many threads of who is she, rather than just say, this is who she is.
And I've actually argued before, if you watch my old videos, my Rey Theory videos, my argument was they actually do try to tell you in The Force Awakens that she is nobody. They try to tell you, don't worry about where she comes. Exactly. The problem is they don't do it very well.
No,
they try to tell you, I'm nobody, I come from nowhere, I'm nothing special, and I'm going to become something special. They try to tell you that, but unfortunately, the mystery of where she did come from outweighs that.
Well, that's part of the problem with the fan base, though. We did this to ourselves in some respects.
Well,
before the movie came out, everyone's going, well, who's Rey? Who's Rey? There were a million theories before this movie even came out as to her lineage and who she comes from. And
which is why you should answer the question in the movie.
She's the daughter of Luke. And they didn't answer that question, which made the problem compound into the next movie.
You're kind of, not that you're wrong, but you're kind of proving the point I'm trying to make, that they should have answered this question. There should have been no doubt who Rey was going to that next film.
But I'm saying that she wasn't a bad character in Force Awakens, and not
the problem with Rey is
the problem with the writing, not a problem with the character.
When she's doing mind tricks, when she's beating Kylo Ren in a lightsaber fight, you immediately go, well, okay, now see that just amplifies the problem of who are you? How does a scavenger from Jakku, pick up a lightsaber for the first time and beat someone who has been trained by Luke and Snoke?
I think she's supposed to be a Skywalker, like a legitimate Skywalker, not a I'm going to call myself.
JJ has acknowledged, and
she was supposed to be.
Daisy Ridley has acknowledged there's been change in her origin.
Mark my words, 100%, she was meant to be Luke's daughter.
I think so.
There's so many breadcrumbs. First off, you have the one in the torture sequence, I guess I'll call it. He sees an island in her mind.
Oh, I see it.
Why does he see an island in her mind? What is the first thing that makes you think she sees an island? He talks about she's got a block, like he's having trouble probing her mind, and then he sees an island. Wouldn't that tell anyone that maybe something maybe altered her memory, or her memory is faulty, and she sees an island, and at the end of the movie she goes to a deserted island where Luke happens to be?
Yeah.
How does she know about this island she's never been to? She's never met Luke.
Yeah, I think it's obvious. I mean, I always thought the Force was just kind of leading Rey to Luke.
No, I always thought that it was the exact opposite. I think he was hiding her for her protection. That's something, maybe when the events of Kylo Ren's betrayal happened, she was sent away.
See, my problem with that is why, if you're Luke trying to hide Rey, why do you drop her off on Jakku of all places in the galaxy?
Maybe it wasn't really a choice. Maybe he lost her.
Well, I mean, if you read the book, Shadow of the Sith,
that takes place after and messes everything up.
No. I'm not saying that book was ever considered or thought. It's an after the thought thing to try to fix it. But the story is so contrived in how you get Rey on with Unkar Plutt and all these things that it's not a bad book. It's actually a pretty decent read for what it is. But the contrivance of trying to get Rey in the hands of Unkar Plutt to make sense, with her parents being, the son or her father being the clone of Palpatine and all these things, it's kind of...
No, I think somehow Luke was supposed to hide his daughter, and maybe he gave her to somebody else to hide her. Their ship got shot down. Who knows what happens exactly, and she ends up being sold to Unkar Plutt. Maybe she's captured by slavers. We don't have to, they never go into the storyline, so I can make up exactly what I think could have happened.
Yeah.
Something that makes sense, that he knew he was watched. I mean, he's a big name in the galaxy.
Well, the problem is we see Rey's what we assume to be Rey's parents leaving her on that ship in the first film.
Well, we see a ship leaving, and she doesn't want to be left.
Sure.
We don't know what the exact situation around that is.
Okay.
It could be caretakers, it could be pirates, and now she's being sold. Of course she's going to be screaming and looking up at this ship that left her behind. Or maybe she was sold and the people who brought her there are going to be sold or taken somewhere else, and they're still on the ship. Or someone she knows is still on the ship. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why to be screaming at a ship that's flying away. Like I said, somebody else she knows could still be on that ship.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, what's interesting is that The Force Awakens never implies that Rey doesn't know who her parents are.
No, never.
It never makes it seem like she doesn't know. Which is odd because The Last Jedi then kind of goes out of its way to imply Rey doesn't know because Kylo... It's a very meta moment in that movie because it's like Kylo turning to the camera and saying, I know who her parents are.
Well, think about it this way.
Because she knows, right?
Luke is trying to hide his daughter, let's say, because everything happened. He knows the First Order is coming. Kylo Ren betrayed him. He's going to put his daughter into hiding for her safety. He puts some sort of force block on her memories, and she assumes these other people she's with are her parents. Because he wants her to have a normal life. At least have a life. So he makes this huge sacrifice to protect her.
Again, it's why would you put her in such a terrible situation?
Well,
Unless you're like, well, I want her to be like me.
How does he know it's a terrible situation? He puts her in a position where she goes off with, let's say, a new family. New family gets attacked, and somebody sells her to Unkar Plutt, and they're taking away what she thinks are her parents, which they aren't her parents, but something befalls them. She's already had a little bit of a life with these people.
Very contrived, but okay.
Why not? I can contrive if everyone, if the people can make the movies can contrive something stupid, I can at least try to make something that makes sense.
Okay.
All right. Years later, we're going through The Force Awakens. Kylo is kind of doing his mind thing, and he sees the island in which she grew up on with her father.
Okay.
There's a connection there to Luke. He sees that she's got some sort of memory issue, and he sees the island. Her Force powers start leaking through because Luke, at one time, was training his daughter before he had to put her into hiding. She grew up around other Jedi, he was training. So she does understand some ways of the Force, and the Force does help her and guide her a little bit in her battle. We fast forward again to the very end of the movie. She gets off the ship, and Leia ignores Chewbacca. Let's say this is on purpose now, and not some sort of accident that they have to go back and say sorry for.
JJ even said sorry.
And Leia runs right up to Rey and hugs her. Almost like she feels some sort of a bond to a girl she's never met.
Well, what's funny is that would have worked more if it turned out to be that she was Luke's daughter.
And then Leia sends her to Luke. Almost like Leia knows something. Maybe she does know, and she's waiting,
A lot of people theorize that, because why doesn't Leia go to try to... Why do you send random girl...
Why do you send Rey, who knows nothing? You send Rey.
And bring back Luke.
The very last scene, Rey is handing a lightsaber. She looks like she's about to cry. You can see so much emotion in the look that Luke gives her when he looks at her.
That look was scrutinized and analyzed for 2 years.
That look is so powerful. What if he turns around and he's looking at his daughter, and he knows he's looking at his daughter? And if you would have fast forwarded to the next movie, and you know what, instead of grabbing the lightsaber from her, he hugs her.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have been a much better opening to the next movie?
The history of Star Wars would have been radically altered. We would not be having this conversation right now, that's for sure.
But that's what should have happened.
And speaking of that,
this is 100% what should have happened.
We've now spent 15 minutes, I think, almost on one movie, so let's move on to that second movie. Rey in The Last Jedi, what went wrong?
I mentally throw that movie out. They did everything wrong. They made Luke horrible, which makes her scenes with him horrible.
I'm not going to argue against that one, yeah.
They put her in this dark makeup, dark clothes, making her look like a moody teen.
I'm glad you pointed that out to me before, because I knew there was something different about Rey in The Last Jedi visually, or the way she looked, and I couldn't figure it out, and they put dark makeup on her.
Her aesthetic in the first movie and the third movie is all lighter colors. They did light makeup because they were trying to give her like an innocent look.
Yes.
And then in The Last Jedi, they're like, darken it up. And she had dark makeup on and dark clothes. They took away all of the lighter colored things she was wearing, which ultimately will change your perception of the character.
I think it does.
Just like they did in the Lord of the Rings movie, Bilbo wore different clothes than the rest of the hobbits. His clothes were made of lusher fabrics because they wanted you to recognize him apart from the other hobbits. So then Rian Johnson decided, from the powers that be, to turn Luke into a senile old man.
I don't know that he was senile.
No, he wasn't senile, but he was a crotchety old man.
Crotchety's fine.
And Rey into just a toddling idiot. I want to be trained. Da 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 da. What
was her?
There was they didn't give her any motivation to wanting to be trained.
She was suddenly all for the cause.
They didn't give her any motivation to stick around. We have to get Luke to come back. It's important.
To what?
To what?
Yeah, that was one of the problems. Is they don't. Rey doesn't have a motivation to fight at all.
She doesn't have any. She hasn't been given one
other
yet.
than to find her place. That's what they try to hinge the whole story on. That she's trying to find her place.
If Luke would have been her father, and like I said, she would have found her place, wouldn't she?
And then she could have been reluctant to get involved. I think that works better.
Yeah, she could have been reluctant. He could have said, you need training. This is...
She's like, no, I don't care that you're my father. You left me or whatever happened. You're
right. She could obviously have problems. Maybe then have some sort of forced vision that explains everything that went wrong. Why else, when she picked up Maz Kanata's, hoarding the Skywalker saber, why did she have visions from Luke if she wasn't related?
Because
Just because. She didn't have any forced visions of being related to Palpatine. Because she had forced visions of Luke all the time.
Anakin Skywalker was still attached to the lightsaber and sent her to Luke.
No, we're not. No, don't make don't make up weird stuff.
That's not weird. That's actually not bad, I think.
It's not horrible.
Thank you. Point for Thor.
But I think my story is better than the Last Jedi story.
Well, I mean, that's not saying a whole lot.
No, it's not.
I mean, the greatest problem with Rey in The Last Jedi for me is I'm going to go save Kylo because 2 days ago he killed Han in front of me and he tried to mind probe me and he's this horrible person. But
Luke could have given her the reasons to go and find Kylo.
Well, no, I guess, but the problem is
Luke could have been telling him the story of him redeeming Vader. Luke could have been, he could have been stepping and telling her, the relationship.
It's strange. She hears two sides of the story about what happened that fateful night in the hut, and she immediately believes Kylo over Luke, and is accusing Luke of what really happened.
It's contrived, exactly, because he needed her to.
Yeah.
Just believe the guy with she's seen shirtless.
The guy
now.
who, maybe that's what did it. I don't know.
It's probably not.
I hope not.
But no, they did the stupidest things possible to change the entire story, and then expected somehow to try and fix it in the last movie, which they couldn't at that point. No. It had been decimated at that point.
Before we get there real quick, I do think Rey taking Kylo's hand at the end of the movie is a much better story. Because it is a flat-out mistake on Rey's part. It is...
In The Last Jedi, I think she should have taken his hand. Yeah. And that could have drawn then Luke out of hiding. Now he's like, Luke. I have to go and I have to save my daughter.
I mean, Luke could have been a little crotchety. He could have been a little... You could have done something with Luke being reluctant to train a new apprentice, and it's his daughter, and, he lost his nephew.
And he can't stand the idea of sending her off to her possible death.
Yes.
Then she gets manipulated by Kylo into joining him, and now he has to go and he has to save his daughter.
There absolutely...
There could have been a wonderful story.
There was absolutely something that could have been done there with Luke being not the Luke we expected, but not so far down the beaten path, if you will, that he's unrecognizable as Luke.
Absolutely.
And then having Rey go off to save Kylo because she learns that's her cousin and all these other things, or we could have found a better excuse than I just want to go save him because why not?
Right, or I heard how Vader was saved by my,
Yes, something. Some reason she could have got more training from Luke. That way she could have been a little more prepared.
They could have recognized and leaned into the dyad more.
Yeah, but they didn't have the idea of the dyad yet, I don't think.
No, but they should have. I don't have any problem with I don't have any problem with the dyad. It just needed to be leaned into more than in just one movie.
It needed to, yes. Everything, it's like every movie kind of made up its own things to kind of explain the last movie or to not explain the last movie. Every movie did its own thing instead of just kind of at least having some kind of game plan from the very start.
I think that's probably all we need to go into. I think I've told you how the story we've kind of jointly figured out how the story should have gone to probably make it better, not perfect, but much better.
Cats invading again. Okay, so The Rise of Skywalker is absolutely, and it's again our 3-year anniversary of that film today, absolutely attempts to be a course correction for Rey. I actually don't mind Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
No. They did what they could with what they had. That's
they
unfortunately all we can expect at that point.
They try to make her doubt herself and to kind of have this moment of weakness, and it lasts about 5 minutes, sure, when she's like, oh, I'm Palpatine's daughter and all these things, or granddaughter, and oh, maybe I'm not a good person. You know, she does kind of doubt herself.
Well, and she thought she had killed Chewbacca. And
yeah, that they could have rolled that out
5 minutes.
For 5 minutes instead of just 2.5, but
yeah.
Sure. So there are all these things in there that attempt to like kind of humanize Rey, kind of bring her down a couple notches, make her likable again. As you pointed out, they kind of lighten her makeup. They make her look a little more...
They get her back to her look towards the first movie, yes.
Yes. And it kind of works. Unfortunately, the movie is so... I mean, you're so far gone at that point with the story that you did what you could.
Absolutely. What else could you expect? It was like a last-minute Hail Mary. We have to try and salvage this somehow with the story threads we now have.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I feel like something like what I dreamed up was probably closer to what should have happened.
It's a shame because
those threads were there.
After the first film, there was certainly potential. Mm-hmm. There was a lot. That's the reason why everybody was theorizing. And I know there were people who didn't like the Force Awakens from the very get-go. That's fine. But we were all theorizing about where Rey was going because we wanted, or where she came from, I should say, which was the problem. Because we wanted to care about where she was going.
Absolutely.
But we first needed to establish who in the world is this girl exactly. And again, that is one of the greatest flaws of The Force Awakens, not putting that in stone for us to just, okay, we know who she is, let's move on.
Right, if they would have given us just a few extra seconds of Luke at the end hugging her, and maybe saying, hear him whisper my daughter, or something.
Instead we get to movie 9 where we've had an explanation for her, and they're like, no, that she's not nobody. She's actually the daughter of the granddaughter of a clone of Palpatine, or whatever nonsense you want to call it.
But if they would have given us just a little more story thread, then it couldn't have been decimated the way it was.
Yes. They needed, like I said, episode 9 didn't need to be Rey finding out she was a Palpatine. That should have been the end of episode 7 or something. If you were going to do that, we needed to know that early. Yeah. And as we've been discussing, it's probably better out to just go Luke's daughter.
That's what everyone wanted.
Yes. Everybody wanted Luke's daughter.
Right. Well, with an explanation that made sense, you would understand why Luke left her, and people would have been okay.
Yes. We wanted to see, I think, the legacy of Luke, especially EU fans. And I know we could talk about Han's kids and how they were changed too, obviously, or Han and Leia's kids. But
I even had the theory at one time that he sent away his daughter with Mara Jade, with his wife, that she still could have been his wife, and that her ship got gunned down, and she ended, something, and that's, even more than hard-hitting emotions of why Luke went into hiding. He thinks he lost his whole family.
I've put that theory out there before too. I mean, maybe Luke told Mara to take Rey somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And he thought they both died, but turns out Rey ended up on Jakku with Unkar Plutt, and she thought her parents were leaving her. It was actually somebody who sold her. Who knows? A lot of things you could have.
A lot of threads that could have been easily just made better.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to bring a close to this aggressive, not so aggressive negotiation. Yeah. I think we agree mostly on this one. There are some things in the first movie that I think we are. That's why that was the longest section of the video.
Because that's the section that set everything up for apparent failure, apparently.
I think so. Like I said, I think the problem is you didn't tell us definitively who Rey was in the first movie, so we looked backwards instead of forwards. That is my conclusion. And then when we did go forwards, you're like, she's nobody. And then you're like, no, wait, hold my blue milk, green milk. She's actually a Palpatine. But she's actually going to claim to be a Skywalker. All right. Well, that's all we got for this time. So take to the comments below. Tell us what you think about Rey and her journey. Do you like it? Where did it go wrong? Where was it good? What could have saved it? Whatever you want to talk about. You know how it works down there. Leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.